Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Perry Franklin. I'll be serving as a facilitator for this very, very timely meeting, MoveBR. A very aggressive meeting to talk about the mobility of Baton Rouge and East Baton Rouge Parish. A very timely meeting to talk about ways in which we can move vehicles and people from point A to point B a lot quicker than they're moving today. And so we have a lot of information to share with you, and we're pleased that you have come tonight to understand more about this plan and to get your questions answered. Also, to learn about ways in which you can follow this plan, which is very important. As all plans start at one place and end at another place, we want you to be able to follow those plans and to be a part of that process. Just to give you an idea of the run of the meeting tonight, I will call Councilman Watson up to welcome you. Thank you in advance, sir, for getting the word out and for getting members of your District 11 here tonight. Councilman Watson will then introduce the mayor, who will give you an overview of MoveBR. Then we will move into the technical aspect of tonight's presentation, Mr. Fred Rayford, who's the Director of Transportation and Drainage for the parish. And then we'll move into Q&A. If you think that you would like to give a question tonight, we would like for you to fill out one of these, and we'll collect these, and then we'll go through these. So if you want to give a question, or if you think you want to give a question tonight, just raise your hand. I'll get a blue card to you, and we'll collect those. If you'll just keep your hands up until we get a blue card to you, that'd be fantastic. Thank you very much. Personal conversations. If we're in a small room tonight, if there are personal conversations, we would ask that you take those out to the hall. Very small setting. It's very easy to hear everyone's conversation. We appreciate that in advance. And your questions, if you would be respectful of one another. We run very respectful meetings. So with that, I'd like to introduce Councilman Watson of District 11, and thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Barry. I'm really happy to see this number of folks to come and turn out tonight. As you know, I mean, I can't be the council person for District 11 without living in District 11, so I share many of the troubles you've got traveling around District 11 and around the city. I also pay taxes here, and this is both a tax discussion and this is an infrastructure discussion on the whole. I know that we don't have everyone here that communicated with me via Nextdoor and via Facebook, so I would urge all of you to get as active as possible in this conversation. If you've got any questions, please ask them. Fred Rayford's going to have all the technical information that you probably would want, and I know that he's real good about getting back with folks because he's done it with me many times when he needs to get additional information. I would ask you to take what you learned from this and share it with your friends and neighbors who didn't come. I mean, we've got empty seats in here, and this is not by any means even a large percentage of the folks that live in, or even a small percentage of the folks that live in District 11. So I'd ask you all to communicate as best you can with everyone else, and I need you all to communicate with me as we move towards the August 8th meeting where we vote to put this on the ballot. So, well, having said all that, I'm going to introduce Mayor Sharon Weston Broome to come up and do an introduction to this. Mayor?
Thank you, Councilman. Well, I just want to first say good evening to everyone. I'm delighted to be back at Jefferson Baptist Church. I was looking for the pastor. He's not here tonight. Okay. I had the opportunity to come here and sit in this very room for a Sunday school class not too long ago. And so I'm no stranger to the church, but I also want to introduce Councilwoman Barbara Freiberg, who does not live in your district.
Her loss.
But she certainly is engaged in all of what goes on in city parish government. And thank you once again, Councilman, for getting the word out about this meeting. I will say our goal is hopefully that we can have another meeting in Council District 11 before the initiative goes to the ballot. And so I want to first start by sharing some great news. I always tell people that each day is filled, as the mayor president, each day is filled with its own set of challenges and with its own set of triumphs. So before we hear about any challenges today, I want to talk about a few triumphs that we experience today in this city. You may have read last week that the Department of Transportation and Development is committing $343 million to completely build the Comey River Diversion Canal project. This project is very key to reducing and in some cases eliminating the flood risk in many parts of our parish. I had an opportunity to be in a meeting this morning with Congressman Graves as we discussed this. And so we are also funding the 5 drainage channel improvements for East Baton Rouge Parish to the tune of $255 million. This includes Bayou Fountain, Wards Creek, Jones Creek, Beaver Bayou, and Black Water Bayou as well. And on the parish level, we recently completed the first phase of our stormwater master plan, which will help us create a major plan to facilitate drainage and reduce the flood risk for our citizens. And just this morning, the Department of Transportation and Development announced that they are starting an I-10 project at Terrace Avenue that will help mitigate traffic at the Washington Street exit, which will certainly enhance safety and traffic flow for our interstate travelers. That is nothing new to most people who live in Baton Rouge. That has been a discussion for quite some time. And so that project will be complete by next year. So since I have been in office, there's probably no comment that has been more frequent in my ear than, Mayor, we've got to do something about traffic in this city and in this parish. A 2014 report from the Texas A&M Transportation Institute named Baton Rouge as the 3rd most congested medium-sized metro area in the country, based on numerous measures, including the hours of yearly delay, wasted fuel due to congestion, and total cost of congestion to consumers. And so the report also ranked Baton Rouge as having the 11th worst road conditions in the country. They estimated that a commuter traveling to Baton Rouge would need to allot 28 minutes to their daily commute on what should only be a 10-minute trip. And lastly, according to the 2017 U.S. Census, the city of Baton Rouge's population is 374,000, while the East Baton Rouge population of the parish is 446,000. So when you take into account those numbers, the commute distance and traveling time has made a significant increase since 2014, with well over 21% of workers driving 50 plus miles a day. And so in addition to the constant comments that I hear surrounding traffic congestion, these statistics certainly speak volumes in terms of where we are as a city and parish. And it's my goal to get us off of these bad lists when it comes to the issue of traffic and roads and infrastructure. And so that is why we're here tonight. We are here to share our traffic relief plan with you. And we really want to get your input about our proposal and our project list. The plan, which we're calling MoveBR, will raise funds, as you've already heard, through a small sales tax. Now, our projects are going to focus on traffic alleviation and capacity improvements to help drivers move more freely throughout the parish. Mobility is what we're after. We want to also include upgrading and expanding roadways, building bike paths and sidewalks, and improving light signal technology throughout the parish. We want to improve the quality of life for every citizen in this parish. Now, some of these projects that you will hear about tonight are expected to be complete within 1 to 2 years once the funds are received. The funds will only amount to 1/2 cent on the dollar through a sales tax rather than a millage. I will tell you, as you know, last year we had a plan as well, and one of the constant comments that we heard as we traveled throughout the city and parish was that many people felt that a millage was not equitable in terms of the people who would be responsible for paying it. And so through a sales tax rather than a millage, the cost of our road improvements are shared with everyone who does business in the Baton Rouge area. And so let me give you another breakdown, a better idea of what it looks like for a $75,000 household income. An individual would be expected to pay approximately $46.52 annually on a half-cent sales tax. Now, the proposed sales tax, as you may know, is not applied to groceries and it is not applied to prescription drugs. And so the tax will last for 30 years. And the reason that the tax will last for this timeline is so that we can bond projects out over an extended period of time. And this is going to allow us to expedite the projects and give drivers relief in the meantime. And so I want to thank all of you all for coming out tonight and demonstrating a willingness to be engaged in what is going on. I am going to bring up Fred Rayford, who is our Director of Transportation. Fred is no stranger to the Baton Rouge community. I knew Fred years ago when I served on the council, and I always, if I had a challenge, back then he was the Director of Public Works. He was one of the most respected individuals in the community. In fact, I think people preferred to hear from Fred than anybody else, whoever the mayor was. But Fred brings a wealth of institutional knowledge as well as insight as it relates to our entire city and parish, probably knows every road, every area on the back of his hand. But in addition to having that insight, he has a very voluminous list of projects that he's going to talk about tonight. So I'm going to ask Fred Rayford to come up. I will tell you that I may have to leave a little bit early before the meeting is over with because I do have another commitment that I'm supposed to speak at as well. Thank you all so much for being out tonight. Fred?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you all for coming here tonight, and hopefully you didn't have any traffic problems getting here, that's for sure. Yeah, and it wasn't, actually. It wasn't too bad today. I don't know why, but it was pretty good. Yeah, it may be. Yeah, very true. Well, first off, we are going to go through a little presentation, and then we'll go over some of the list of items that are on the project list, and then I'll be more than happy to try to answer your questions that you may have in regards to it. And again, as the mayor stated, this is recommendations. So if there's something that you feel that maybe shouldn't be there, we want to know that, or something else that needs to be incorporated with that, we want to know that information too. Nobody has the magical list, and nobody has whatever street needs to be done. What we did do is to look at the overall valuation of a lot of planning, a lot of studies and data that was being incorporated for years, but also what we need to do from future BR, but also from the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is our governing authority for the parishes that we look at, and what traffic improvements that may need to be done not only now, but up to 2037. What progression that we would need to have in regards to that. So it wasn't just throw a dart on the piece on the map. It was looked at very closely. It looked at safety issues in regard to infrastructure. As the mayor stated, it's great to have a road program. We want to get you from here to here faster, but we also want to get you there safer. And I think those are the ingredients that we're going to look, you'll see on a lot of our projects, including filling in a lot of the canals on the ditch where people sometimes has a tendency to drive into. But more importantly is that it allows you that opportunity for other infrastructure, bikes, people walking, those ingredients that are really pluses for quality of life for people. So with that, Ryder, we'll go ahead and start the presentation. Mayor stole half the presentation already, but that's okay, because that's why they call her the mayor. She can do that, but as she mentioned, is a half-cent sales tax. It starts April 1st of 2019, and I like to be real positive about that, when it's approved. It will start, and not if it's approved. I like to be more positive when it's approved. On 2019, and it goes through 2049. It's a 30-year plan. She mentioned also about the exemption of food and drugs, and it applies to all the sales in the parish, regardless of where people reside at. So, big thing is, it is about trying to keep it at a level that people believe they're being treated fairly, and it doesn't totally destroy their whole quality of life when they're trying to feed your family and do all the other components, but also participate in a project that's needed. Next. It's expected to generate about $46 million a year. That's a lot of money. I'm not going to question that. But when you're talking about infrastructure projects that we have to try to put out and get them out in a timely fashion, it don't last very long. I can assure you. One project that's on the list is the PQ lane interchange and widening. It's $52 million. So that ought to tell you, one project would only get done on a year, and you're sitting waiting and saying, when is mine going to get done? And those are the issues that you're challenged with every day when we're looking at the plan. Bond sale is to expedite the construction, absolutely. There are questions about why do we want to bond it? And I think if you don't, you're not going to get these projects out in a timely fashion where you will see a benefit. Because you're the one paying for it, you need to see the benefit. And I think the projects are spread out enough where I don't think there's any question people will see that benefit. GPL 35 projects was about $725 million. That's what the old project, this one is around $912 million. A lot of money, no question about it. But we have a lot of needs and a lot of things that need to be addressed from mobility, safety, and capacity. Proceeds of the tax must be spent on the approved list. And as the mayor says, and here it is, and you have it, it says recommendations. We believe these are good recommendations. I mean, they've been you looked at. They do connect streets, your major highways. You have your connector streets that you want to try to tie into to reduce some of the traffic congestion. But you don't want to shove all the traffic into certain areas without having that infrastructure improved too. That's what we also looked at in this program. Also, the construction project can be expected probably in about a year to 2 years. Some may be even sooner than that. The traffic signals that you'll see in the program, that can probably commence immediately. And that is probably one of the biggest benefits you can see for your dollar without having to wait on the construction. But that is one of the goals that the mayor has said and asked us to do. Get us out, get this down. If it's approved, get it out where we can get these projects underway. Next. I think here, I don't really need to go into the detail, but if you look at it from an average family, what 25 cents on we on $50 purchase up to a $500 purchase is $2.50. That all changes, and you know that depending on the family. Each family has its own wants and needs, but at least you give you some kind of indication of what you'll be dealing with. I think the mayor also mentioned that on a $75,000 family, you would probably look at paying about $46 annually. So, next. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. Planned projects, new capacity, and all you have to do is drive on our roads and say, "Boy, we need to do some improvements on our roadways." No question. Not only do you have to address sometimes how it rides, but how many vehicles you can get on and off on some of these lanes that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. New capacity represents new roadways and existing roadways, intersections where you can add additional through lanes or turning movements that will help improve the capacity. That's what we're looking at as far as widening the streets. And on the list, you'll see that on the list, and you'll see maybe a 3-lane, we may be going to a 4-lane, or it could be a 2-lane going to a 4-lane. So, and you'll see in there that it provides basic infrastructure issues regarding sidewalks or mobility, because that is very important. It's $645 million based on this proposal. Next. Existing corridors. Let's in the real world, I saw a poll that was done by the chamber, and it was very interesting about the fact that the number of people who said, what are the real problem corridor areas? And the list that we have, and that was, nobody saw the list yet, but it was very interesting to see that the list that came up, every one of them but one was on that list of where it's not necessarily what cars do every day. It's more like if you have a transit system, which we do have, and we want to be able to not necessarily buy buses, but we want to buy places for people to pull off so they can load your people on and off the bus in a safe manner. That is very important. Not everybody is fortunate enough to drive a car. Some people have to get to and from work by transit. Our goal and objective, and that's what one of the things the mayor has really emphasized, is we want to look at everybody's needs, not just these needs. And that's one of those incorporated on the corridor studies that we feel that are very important. And we'll go over the list in a little bit. That's $170 million as far as toward the plan. Next. Enhancements. I wish I could do 3 times that. The 56 million, that's sidewalks, bikes, and things like this that people like to have in their community, including on some of the roadways. All our roadways that will be widened will incorporate what the mayor's policy and has been is a complete street concept. That's sidewalks. If we can get bike trails in or bike lanes, we will include those. But we also want to have it was pedestrian friendly, ADA required, because we have all types of people who like to move to and from, and these components need to be looked at. But also allows us to put sidewalks in certain areas, which if you haven't noticed on Cal Drive, and I think Councilman Watson will tell you that he is excited about that project being put in, the sidewalk. We still have some issues we'll get resolved, but overall, it's a great enhancement, not only because the school's there and allows the kids to walk, but I've already saw when I was driving by today, 2 or 3 couples were walking down the sidewalk. That's what it's about. That's really what it's supposed to be for. And maybe, and as it is, I increased it $10 million more anyway this year because I wanted to be able to try to do more enhancement projects out there. Now that will be, council will have a call for projects and we'll go out and look at areas where we want to try to enhance sidewalks or put in new sidewalks. But that, very, very, very important project. Next. All right, one of my favorites. It's a parish-wide signalization. It's about $40 million. It's a lot of money, but $5 million is for software upgrades that we need to have done. And I've had 2 or 3 people mention to me, said, well, I thought we did that 10 years ago. Yes, we did some of it. But you know how old how old equipment gets with technology there is today? I mean, today, you look at your phones. 2 years, you had phones where they are today and where they were 3 years ago, entirely different. Synchronization of lights is the same, having the technology, what we need to have. The big key here to me is, I would say, connectivity of all our signals with what I would look as the fiber, because 60%, and I didn't realize that until, well, about 7 months ago when the mayor asked me about it. It's about 60% of our signals are not connected to fiber where we can find out what's going on at each interchange or each intersection to be able to make changes, even with the signals that are upgraded already. We don't even have the connection. And I have to tell you, most of those on state routes. And look, I'm not trying to be critical of the state or any ways. But in the real world, just like you'll see on this list, and one of my comments is, we're going to spend money on some of these state highways. And you pay state taxes, just like everybody, and I understand that. But to get it done, and the way the financial situation is right now with the state, we got to have to step up and get the project done. 2 particular projects that I will tell you were here my first term that I left, and it's 15 years ago that we've been talking about Ohammond Highway, and we've been talking about Hooper Road. And when you look at the major corridors, those are 2 that people in this entire community ranked very highly. And we don't have the funds from the state to be able to get it done. So either we're gonna do it, or we're gonna continue to people to say, why do you build a roadway, a 4-lane, 5-lane roadway, and stop it to a 2-lane? It's because of money. That's the real world, and we're gonna propose pushing that to get these projects out. I think that's important. The signals, there's ways that we can go in and do connectivity of our signals with the fiber. We're doing that right now on some locations. We're able to get some funds from road transfer that the state has agreed for us to do that, and we're moving forward on corridors like Florida, Airline Highway, parts of Perkins Road. And also, if you have the fortunate opportunity to drive on 9th or 10th Street downtown and see how frustrating those signals are, yeah, I mean, I'll promise you, you can sometimes go to that location at Government and at the interstate, and I'll guarantee you, you will grow a beard waiting on the light to change. I'll also tell you that we have many detectors that new sophistication of detectors that be able to tell you all the data you need to have. Those are the things that we want to incorporate. They last 12 years compared to what they used to do with 2 years. So this program, and I think the mayor has laid this out, I mean, to the point where she's mentioned to y'all, I think we touched every mode that we can do. You know, I do believe that. And some people say, well, it's maybe too much, and I can appreciate that. I don't know any more else what we can do at this point except provide you as citizens with a list of projects that I believe that will enhance our quality of life, your children's quality of life. And look, nobody wants to pay money. I get it. I understand it. But I mean, at some point, either we're going to do what we need to do and get the job done like other cities done, like Shreveport. They have done the same, just like we're proposing. I would think that I would like to hope that our people in this parish will be supportive of this and see about getting this project approved and underway so we can get things built. From that, is that the last one? Well, it's going to be 40 projects that's built in Councilman Watson's area for about $814 million.
This is the total list.
Oh, I thought that was okay. Well, if it's 814 in his list, we're in shape, that's for sure. I'm gonna get some more voters, that's for sure. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And we have 12 corridors that we're looking at doing, like Plank Road, Florida Boulevard. How many accidents and fatalities have you seen or heard about on Florida Boulevard? It's horrible. It's very horrible. And you also, go ahead, Rodney. All right, let me just go over a few of the projects. Perkins, well, Bluebonnet from Perkins to Picardy. I know none of y'all drive that road. I know that because none of y'all go to the mall and none of that. I'm well aware of that. Well, this is one time that if you just add that one lane on each side between that, your congestion level will probably drop about 25% right at that location. The numbers reflect that. It's, you know, you say, well, how do you get underneath the underpass, the railroad? It's enough room there to do it. We can get the road in place, including the sidewalk. But from just the railroad track back out to Perkins Road, add an additional lane in both directions. How many of you seen how many lanes they've added on Essen Lane? I mean, and actually, it's working very well right now. So I think we add this third lane here, you're gonna see the turning movements at Bluebonnet and Perkins get almost unbelievably better, but also the through movement will be good. Dijon, we're starting the phase 1 of Dijon next week. That's in front of the Children's Hospital. It's about $12 million for that widening to 4-lane, and this is what we're proposing for the extension to bring this Dijon number 2 all the way to Bluebonnet. We want to have that 4-lane connector from Essen to Bluebonnet. You know, we got to have capacity, but you also got to have where in that area, in the hospital quarter, they want to look at doing bikes and things like that. So that's all incorporated in this plan. Next. Jefferson and Bluebonnet. I know none of y'all drive that road either. So what we're proposing to do, and the councilman has asked that specifically because it's a problem, and all you gotta do is drive out there and see that. We're gonna extend the double lefts on Bluebonnet at Jefferson, where you can bring it back almost past the canal, which was, you got a box canal there. It probably gives you another 50 to 75 cars that you probably can get in storage there, which allows your turning movements but doesn't tie up your through movements. That's important. But more importantly, we'll also adjust the timing that needs to be to allow for the extra movement that needs to be done. Next. Jefferson and Corporate. Would provide a right turn lane off of Jefferson onto Corporate. No right-of-way that's needed. There are some utilities that would have to be relocated, but all you gotta do is just come off of Lobdell and try to get onto Jefferson and you're stuck. And you'd be surprised how many people, once they get to the light, to make that right turn movement there to go on to Corporate. The studies have been evaluated on it and would be a great project for us to do. Thanks. Midway, this is also in the hospital corridor. It's a new street. It'll be a 2-lane roadway for connectivity, to be able to tie in Picardy with Dijon, but you also have the other streets there that all bring you out within that and within the hospital area, but certainly a much needed project. This is one that's currently almost there. I'll say it's Picardy Perkins Connector, and I don't know if y'all know what it is, but it's right out there by the mall, but it comes right there by the shopping center. It ties into Perkins. It's a 4-lane corridor. It will certainly also enhance the turning movements on Bluebonnet at Perkins, but it will also be able to move traffic from off of Bluebonnet onto Perkins, take it and get onto the Mall Road and get you on the interstate without having to tie up the interchange at Perkins and Bluebonnet and I-10. It will certainly be an enhancement for the project. It's about $40 million worth. Okay, Ronnie. Oh, well. All right. Now, here's one of the highway projects that everybody's talked about, and it's a major corridor for our parish, but it also is an evacuation route for the parish. And to be honest, we want to look at adding a lane in each direction. We did not fund this project totally because we believe that, I think, waning on some of the projects that we've been talking about for the last 15 years, we felt like we needed to get those done. And hopefully maybe if the state comes up with some other funding, they'll be able to help us bring these things through tuition. But I will tell you that it is needed. It would certainly help the congestion problems we deal with on airline every day. The next phase is on PQ, which, as I mentioned to you, I have to tell you, this project here is probably one, it's a well-known secret unless you live out there, but I will tell you it's probably going to be one of the biggest traffic improvements in our parish. And the reason for that, if you ever go to Highland, get off at Highland at the interstate, it's like waiting forever. And if you get off on Segan to go, get off on at the interstate to get to Segan, you wait twice as long. No matter how much traffic you have, this will spread out that volume, allow you to get on and off at that particular location to PQ, which we will, and get you to Airline, which is one of the reasons why we also felt like it needed to be widened also on Airline Highway. That project is, we were fortunate enough to get $30 million from the DOTD just recently with federal dollars, which they were not, the MPOs, somebody didn't spend all their money they were entitled to, so we got in line first, and we've been in line first and asked for it, and we were granted that $30 million. Clay cut from Foster to Jefferson. I know there's, you got a school there. If you look at the sidewalks that are there, they're not very conducive to children walking in areas. We want to look at maybe improving some of the ditch areas there and widen the street a little bit, not to a 4-lane or anything like that, but to improve it just from a safety standpoint, but also upgrade sidewalks in that location. Drusilla from Jefferson O'Hammond. It was a state highway, now it's the City of Baton Rouge Highway. Certainly, if you look at, that's a connector street. It's from Essen to Hammond. I mean, that's, to me, those are a major corridor that takes traffic off Old Hammond, also can handle the traffic on Essen. By widening it, you can, and I say widen it, we're gonna look at either the 3-lane section, but we may just have some continuous turning lanes. But the biggest part here is to also provide filling in the ditches, no right-of-way need, provide your sidewalks and trails that you need to get to the park and also to the stores, the shopping centers that are right there on that location. That is what we also contribute to connectivity for this project. Well, almost the same here on Sharp from Old Hammond to Florida. Actually, we've had more accidents at this location than even on Drusilla. But we also want to look at, providing additional turning movements in there, filling in filling in the ditches, and also provide that connectivity now with just traffic. There's a lot of homes that front on the street, so you don't want to try to cut off their access, but you also want to let them be able to make their turning movements and not restrict that, because that would be an issue for them, but also provide sidewalks on the trail. This is another sidewalk project that being proposed, is also from I-10 to Cloverland. There's a lot of business along that area, not much residential, but you do have apartment complexes that use that area from across the street to get there, to get to the shopping areas. Well, there it is. Matt, District 11 is $202 million worth of projects that, it's 12 of them. It's a lot on the list, but I think they're all good quality projects, but that's why we're here tonight, to hear what you feel, what you see, and I'll certainly open up the floor. And is that good, Mayor? All right.
If you have your blue cards, if you'll just raise those, you can start forwarding those to me. And I'll start getting these questions to Fred. First question, how will projects be prioritized?
Well, first off, a lot of it depends on where we are with existing projects. I mean, there's some, like I said, the Bacardi Perkins, we got a lot of that done. The only thing we don't have finalized there is the right-of-way from the Jimmy Swaggarts. And we thought we had that issue resolved, but then he filed suit against us, and we're still in court trying to address that. I mean, those type of projects that we have plans, we have everything almost there, those will certainly have to be from a priority standpoint. As I mentioned earlier, I would look at our signals, because I think you get your biggest bang for your buck right off the bat. Proposing getting the signal upgrades, getting all the construction that's needed, and even with the widening of lanes on some of these locations, we will put the signals back far enough to the point where we don't have to go back and redo it over and over again. Transportation is a priority. Certainly, if you like to ride a bike, that's a priority to you. But from my perspective, I look at safety issues. Number one, where the number of accidents have happened since 2015 that we have counts on. That is important from the data, because I'm trying to look at these projects on data-driven, not just because somebody asked me to look at doing that. That was part of the issue. And I think when you look at the big picture, I mean, there are a lot of projects, a lot of stuff, a lot of the data that's out there. We just need to get it and update it to the point where I think we can move these projects along pretty fast. Now, that being said, it's about money too, and those are things that we would try to establish from a priority aspect. I don't have any problem with people's input on why they think something is necessary. I don't live out there every day like y'all do. Maybe some of those things need to be factors in that, because the mayor's always been open to the point where, we have our technical data, we have this data, but, sometimes we have a tendency to leave out the people data. And to me, I think that's critical.
So can we ask a question about what you just said? because you said you need to continue gathering the data. So if you haven't gathered all the data, how can you prioritize the projects?
Well, we have data. The problem is that you have to go get it from either the highway department, what projects they may have some data on. And we have old studies that we would pull up to look at some of that data. I don't want to start the wagon wheel all over again. If I have that data there, we take that and move that forward based on what we need to do from on the.
So you're saying these projects were decided without all of the data being?
No, ma'am, no, ma'am, no, ma'am.
All right.
No, ma'am.
You just need additional data.
Yes, ma'am, because everything you have, some of the data that we had, it's outdated. But it's good data. It does what we needed to do. But we need, yes, ma'am, we would have to come in and do that updates.
Okay.
I've probably got about 24 questions here, so if you'll allow us to go through these questions and then we'll see if there's time for any more from the floor. Why 30-year sales tax versus bonds?
Why what? I'm sorry.
Sales tax versus bonds.
Well, you still, something's got to pay for the bonds. I mean, you got to have some sales tax to be generated. I mean, to be able to do the bonds, you know, right now, and I will tell you, and I don't want to speak for my finance department, but I've had meetings with our director and chatted with the mayor and them. I mean, people ask, why do we have to do this? Why don't we use the existing funds? Folks, I will tell you this, it's not there from my perspective, and I can only speak from my division and the things that I have to deal with on a daily basis. I don't believe there are funds sitting in the general fund that would be able to allow this flexibility to get these projects underway. I mean, you know, when we continue to hear people express frustration about traffic, and all we're trying to do is find ways to advance that way, advance the projects, and also provide the infrastructure that's needed.
Do these projects have a percentage that will be set aside for ongoing maintenance?
Anytime we do a program, and that's also part of the road transfer, we have funds that are set up under that program. There will be some funds available for repair because you're going to have it. I mean, nothing lasts forever. Even things that last 20, 30 years, they still at some point have to come in and be replaced and repaired. There will be some provisions in there, but, you know, again, right now we're looking at trying to build the infrastructure itself.
Many of the roads that you discussed are state-owned.
Yes.
Is that a priority? To improve
From my perspective, when you talk to, I go to meetings and I hear about the state roads that need to be done and there's no funds available. Yes, it will be, because particularly the ones that have been out there for 15, 20 years and been on the list and nothing has happened. Those will certainly be priorities.
Dollars spent in the last 30 years. Is there a way that we can find out more about dollars spent in the last 30 years for traffic enhancement and mitigation?
Yes, we have a finance department within Public Works and finance department that tracks every dollar we spend on infrastructure improvements, including turning lanes, and even if it was a general fund appropriation or any other type of fund, but any bond money, any state money, any federal money that we have, all those are trackable, and yes, we have that list available.
Given that money must be spent on approved projects, has the committee considered that things will most certainly change over the next 30 years? And I guess the question is, how would that sort of be involved?
What
How would that
kind
be
of
integrated?
changes? Could you give the examples from the question of the kind of changes?
Driverless cars, mixed-use residential, electric cars, death of malls.
Absolutely, you have to look at all those factors. You know, I mean, what's today's society, just like I mentioned in signals, 10 years ago, the signals were supposed to be state of the art. Today, they're so outdated, it's unbelievable. But I agree with that question. You know, at some point, you can only widen so many roads and you can only do so many things, and there's no question about that. Our goal and objective is to be more enhancement from the public safety aspect, but there got to be some roads to be widened. Will there be the smart city concept where we're looking at having connection parts for charge up your cars and things like that? we've been approached on that. We got to look at the cost of that and see how that could fit into our program.
So that hasn't been considered in any of these plans that have to be done over the next 30 years without changes. And I would like to also request that the question be read as written instead of paraphrased, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Approximately, when will the majority of the bonded money be spent? That is, when would we reasonably expect these improvements to be completed?
Well, normally, you don't bond all the money at one time. You look at doing that over 3 phases, 10-year phases that you would look at trying to address that. Because you don't want to miss out on some lower rates that you can do when you want to bond. Our goal and objective is to try to have some projects ready. So when we want to bond the money and get it out there so we can see construction. And that's really what I would say in regards to that question.
Okay. With the impending master plan for stormwater management needing funding, how can we get timely information to assess the priorities across both major projects?
Well, see, I am the fortunate person that's responsible for transportation and drainage, the 2 things that people don't like the most, So the Stormwater Master Plan is a major project for this parish. It's the first time that I will tell you that I believe we'll have a plan to be able to analyze exactly what the impact is on different type of storm events and also what we need to do to have some improvements to reduce the flood risk and for people in this parish. It's not ready yet, and let me tell you why, because it takes a little while to gather all the data, which is a good comment that you made earlier. Gather the data, be sure it's right, and move forward with the program. I don't want to make any decision that impacts you, your family, your wallet, or anybody's wallet without having the technical evaluation of that report. That is essential. And while I may be criticized that it's taking too long, well, I'm going to tell you one thing. It's going to be right, and you're going to have plenty of meetings to discuss everything that we're proposing. Because if you don't know about it, it's because you didn't want to attend. But we're going to have more meetings than Carter has pills. I can almost tell you that for y'all to be able to look at what's going on. That also will address our road projects, because one of the things we're going to look at, I just can't build a road and just shoot all the water down where it needs to go. It's going to cost, and we looked at that cost a little more to store maybe some water within some of the channels that we have to deal with, or the enclosed conduit. Those are things that we'll have to look at in the big picture, because they go hand in hand to me. And while I want the improvements, I also got to look at what the negative part is how does that runoff affect people, and that will be looked at.
What are the anticipated interest rates on the bonds? What interest, what will be the total cost of the projects?
I really can't answer that because I'm not the bonding attorney. I will just tell you that I know it's going to generate about $46 million a year.
Let me help you, Fred.
All right, that's fine,
Okay,
Mr. Phillip.
The total cost of the project, if you take current dollars, which is $46 million a year generated
30.
in taxes, and you take that out over a 30-year period, it comes to $2 billion.
Okay.
$2 billion. It's not $900 million, it's $2 billion.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. I'll double check you at finance on that, okay?
Please do. I've already run the numbers.
I'm sure. Well, I know you're pretty good at what you do, and I have no problem with that.
Let's get that
I
information.
think you've already answered this question. Do all projects include integrated drainage plans?
Well, I think I just answered that. I would say that they're going to have to, because we have to look at those issues in regards. Some of them already have, some places have sufficient outfalls where it really wouldn't be a big deal, but others do not, and we're going to have to look at that concept.
Many of the proposed road projects are sorely needed. However, these projects resulted from growth and business coming to East Baton Rouge Parish. Capital infrastructure funding should come from this growth, but you're asking us for more tax money. Why can't the city fund these projects from increased tax revenue from this growth? It's hard to support more taxes when we can't maintain properly what we have today. Tax and spend is not the answer.
Well, certainly I believe that everybody's entitled to that opinion, because that's why we're here tonight, to talk about those issues. I will tell you that not all developers get a free ride, because we do have a traffic impact fee that we institute on development, and it has to have impact on what that development bringing in. They have to solve those infrastructure improvements, and then anything that's on site off their property, they would be responsible for regardless. But we, if you look at the Lee Drive in Burbank, the extension over there, that was about $6 million worth of work that the developer did in there, and we didn't pay anything, but the developer did. But that was part of the requirements that he needed to do for his expansion. So we do, there's, in my opinion, while there may be some free rides, but not very often do we get a free ride. But we ask people, if you're gonna come in and develop, you pay that impact fee, and then those funds are set aside for us to do infrastructure improvements, small. And then, we're not talking $50 million, you know, I mean, that's not there. Right now, we have about $4 million. But I will just tell you that, you know, we use those funds to do designated infrastructure improvements for the area.
And when was the last time impact fees were increased?
Ma'am, if you'll allow us to get your questions, I appreciate it.
I'll be glad to stay after and answer whatever you got to, so.
This is
I'd like
probably,
it all on the record.
Well, that's fine, I'm good with that too. Yes, ma'am.
this is probably more of a comment than a question. This citizen also said, there are many options for the state to increase revenues. Examples are fuel tax, license fees, toll fees, hotel fees, to name a few. All right.
Well, I'm sure there are, but you know, I think if you watched the legislature, how it went, the tax, gas tax went down the tube. You know, at that point, you know, as my good friends always tell me, it is what it is. You know, so at this point, without having that opportunity, then we got to find the next step to go where we need to go.
Okay. This individual says, I would like to include in the plan, work needs to be done to Enniswall in both directions to facilitate 2 new subdivisions that are planned in the area. Excavation work and utility work has commenced, and that street from Gale Drive to Jefferson Highway will be used more
Yes, ma'am.
frequently due to new residents. It's especially difficult currently for vehicle and school buses to pass in that area.
It's impossible.
Good suggestion. I've heard it. And that would be something that I would believe traffic impact fees would be something more acceptable to look at.
Did you answer?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it
I
did.
couldn't hear
Oh, I'm
you.
sorry. I would say,
Put
I'm
that
sorry.
down, so I
Okay, that's
thought you
fine. All
gave
right.
answer, yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good use of traffic impact fees, because it's a tie-in to streets, and I understand it. It has the existing right-of-way that's already there, you know,
Well,
so,
I went to many meetings on those 2 developments,
yes, ma'am.
and we were told that the developer was supposed to put up money to do things to make it better for all of the additional houses and residents that were gonna be living in those areas.
Yes, ma'am.
But we also were told that that money that they put up to the city parish doesn't always get used for that.
Well, I can tell you this, traffic
that
impact
process
fees,
work?
all I can speak for is traffic impact fees. That's under my direction.
Is
And
that
those,
what that the
I would
developer
assume,
wants?
yes, there would be any improvements that they would do, if it would causes any delays or any additional, you know, congestion or whatever, that would be a fee that would be assessed to that developer to put into the traffic impact fee account. Now, if that, I'm not sure if that was done, I really don't know that. I've only been here a year, seems like 20 years again, but I will look into that, because I know Councilman Watson has asked me about that, and I certainly understand his wishes and y'all's
Well, the
desire.
only thing we've seen so far, and we don't know if this is something to appease us, is the sidewalks.
That was planned a long time ago.
The
Well-
sidewalks are not gonna help the traffic.
Well,
I mean, it's really bad back there.
yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, that sidewalk was decided under the previous council.
Right, years
So that
ago.
was long before
Yeah.
any of the folks had decided to do any of those
Well, you
subdivisions.
at all the meetings, you know, the concern of the traffic and everything
Yes,
like
ma'am.
that.
Yes, ma'am. And traffic impact fees, as Fred is addressing, that it really should be spent in the area around where it happens. And Fred and I and Kerry Chauvin and the parish attorney have had a couple of meetings talking about trying to limit the distance away from something that's generating traffic. Those dollars can be spent in making sure they can't be sidetracked into a survey or a study for something else, like has happened under the previous administration.
Well, somebody's still getting injured like that.
Well, I certainly hope not.
Okay.
And the city parish might get sued over it because of the infrastructure.
Next individual says, are there any clever plans to get this word out, i.e. catchy ways to put in perspective what we get for a mere $1 per week, or tout the success of the Green Light program? If we could show how beneficial that was, and we can get, again, for one dinner with your spouse, example.
You read it in all detail? Okay. I will just say that there is a move right now, and the mayor has had meetings with various groups to look at ways to go out and get the public informed about what we're trying to do, what the benefits are, in regards to our program, and, because it is important to our community. But, the bottom line is you make that decision. You are the voters, and whatever you choose to do, we're going to live with. I mean, that's the way it is. But our goal and objective is to try to make sure you know what positive benefits there are. And one of the things that I've asked my Capital Region Planning Commission to do is to look at certain roadway corridors as if you drive it today, how long it takes you to go from this point to that point during peak hour. And with these improvements that are made, then what models can dictate can tell you how long it takes you from here to the same point, how quicker were you able to do that. And I believe we'll see that, and I think, quite frankly, when you look at the comparison, I believe this will move us out of the top 10 worst traffic places in the United States. I do believe that. These are good streets, they're good corridors, they're good connectors, and it makes people move to other locations without having to stay in a line of traffic. That's the big thing.
To get $2 billion worth of work for less than $52 for $1 a week sounds pretty good to me.
Well, I guess, that, again, I agree, yeah, because I know I have to deal with it every day, and I listen to that. But I will tell you that there are people in here that may choose not to do that, and I respect that. That's their decision as voters, and we'll live with whatever the outcome is.
Why don't you use the assessment of the house?
Wait a minute, I want to.
I think we've got about 8 more questions, and then we'll see if there's any
Yeah, I
more.
don't want to be in the doghouse.
That's something what he said. Okay, it's $1 a week right now, but what you've got to take into account is escalation. And so when I said it's $2 billion, those are escalated dollars, okay? They're not current dollars, they're escalated dollars. So at the end of 30 years, you're going to be, in total, we will have spent $2 billion on the program, okay?
That's assuming that your revenue doesn't generate better and you can pay it off sooner, though, either. Because that's happened. That's happened.
Well,
The next question, I think we've hit on part of this one. Why did the city accept Old Hammond Highway and other state roads from DOT when we aren't maintaining the ones we have? What is the average number of monthly mass transit riders in East Baton Rouge Parish?
Well, let me address the Old Hammond first, since somebody asked that question. Old Hammond is not a bad highway. I mean, it's a concrete curb and gutter, sidewalks, and they still have some repairs that'll have to be done to bring it up to date before we will officially accept that. Under the road transfer, we just didn't carte blanche accept everything. Some we did. Drusilla we did, as is. I will just tell you, I don't know why, who, but I wasn't here when that was done, but I'm the person now responsible for it. So I'm going to do whatever we got to do to address that, to try to get it in a reasonable condition, and that's one of the reasons that I felt like it's a major thoroughfare between Old Hammond and Essen, and that's why I wanted the improvement. Old Hammond Highway, any part that before we accept that will have to be brought up to date, including the sidewalks to meet ADA requirements and any panels that need to be replaced. sealed up in joints. All that has to be incorporated in part before we accept it.
Next question. Any plans for long-range rail transportation?
I would say there's plans. I know there's been recent meetings on that, and I know that there's looking at for a location in the downtown area, also at the hospital for the clinics, and to go to New Orleans. Yeah, that is part of my role and responsibility, but right now I got enough roads to deal with, and then I also got to make sure I address the railroad crossing so people will have a safe and passage across, and that's been my main goal and objective at this point.
Extension of that question, maintaining right-of-ways for railroads. Is that a part of?
No, sir, that's not ours. That's, I'd be glad to call either KCS or Canadian National, one of the two. I have no problem. I'll give you the numbers if you want, so.
Okay, new crossings, Amy River.
Well, that's one that's been talked about for years, even the first time I was here, 15 years ago, and it's still being talked about. It's about funding. One of the issues that we wanted to at least address was widen Hooper, at least get it from Plank Road all the way to Sullivan. Because right now you got spotted places, which is not improved. And then ultimately, you would probably, if you were going to look at this connector street off of 409, then it would probably require a bridge and tied it into, oh Lord.
Watson.
No, not Walker. Watson, yes, sir, into Watson. So I think that's something that probably needs to be looked at, but probably in the real near future.
And last question from this individual, new connection to LA 42 and LA 44.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
LA 42 and 44? I know that's outside the parish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me just say this, part of the proposition that's also before you is that not only are we required to make sure the projects list is available, but just as important that we cannot spend any of these dollars, any of our sales tax dollars, on anything outside our parish under this program.
Okay. Are you willing to share specific examples of waste elimination and process improvements that have benefited the taxpayers? Yes or no? If yes, are there 3 specific examples?
Who's answering that, me or you?
I'm the facility.
I know, I'm just picking. I would say that one of the things that we have looked at from traffic engineering, is the manpower shortage that we do have, and every department has had that, but we're doing a lot more work at nighttime than the daytime because we can get a lot more done. I think you'll look at the productivity of our signal changeouts, but more importantly is the maintenance and repairs that need to be done for our signals. That has certainly improved. The numbers have increased, which tells me, and we haven't done it with any additional people, but we just changed some hours for people to work. Some people would rather work at night, some would rather work at daytime. And we do have supervisors at night, so somebody's watching if they're not sleeping on the side of the road. So I just wanted to let you know that. But, for my department, that's probably one of the biggest. I'm not want to pour mouth because I don't believe in that, but right now we're short-staffed. I can't hardly hire people to be able to get the job I need to have done. We just have a difficult time getting the type of personnel and the quality of personnel that I think you would expect as being paid by taxpayers' dollars. And it's not unique to us, but we're the ones that in police are always the ones out on the forefront and the ones who people want to see what's getting done. So, but that is an issue that we deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Fred, why don't we contract out some of this work?
I have. Now, in fact, quite honestly, first time I was here, I contracted out garbage services, and that's garbage collection. I also did some sewer rehab work that we've done with multiple agencies. Right now, I'm looking from my department, because I'm not public works anymore, I'm just transportation and engineering. We do a lot of privatization on engineering because I don't have enough staff to do this, so we have to hire a firm to be able to do a lot of our work for us. We do the review. But as far as transportation, I mean, as far as traffic and stuff, there are firms that can do that. But when you look at what it costs, we'll continue to work nights and days to do it.
Next question. Will any of the money be used to teach DOTD that patching a concrete roadway with asphalt never works? Example, Jefferson Highway.
I would say that the answer to that would be no, but I think they know better. But let me just say this. Sometimes when you see that asphalt patch, it's attempted to be a temporary fix. Because you can't go out there all the time and go cut out the panel and have it shut down for an extended period of time. And I don't care what part of Jefferson Highway you're on. It's a zoo. I mean, they go full speed ahead and no stop. So sometimes that's why they do the patchwork, just to get by, because they've had complaints or damage to the vehicles, and that's what they have to do to get by until they can set up a schedule to make the real repair.
But you do say Brentwood got redone, and then you go and dig it up and make another hole and patch it again. After it's just been done, that's crazy. Of course it's gonna fall apart again.
Well, and I'm not sure if you're talking about the highway department or our department, but I don't speak for the highway department. I have enough problems within my own department.
Brentwood's
You know,
not,
Brentwood?
yeah, that goes
Yes, sir.
from Jefferson to Old
Yeah, that's
Bailey.
our, yes, sir. Yeah, that's ours.
Why, after they finished it, they dug it up again and patched it.
Well, it may have been from a storm drain issue that I understood that they had a problem with adjacent on the golf course side, I think.
Okay, we have a few more questions. How will widening Interstate 10 to 4 lanes work westbound if the new bridge will still only have 2 lanes over the bridge? Cost reported to be $500 million in 7 years versus $20 million to simply extend Perkins and Acadian entrance ramps 500 feet each.
Well, let me just say this. Again, I don't work for DOTD, but I understand where Sean is trying to come from in regards to that. I know for at least 25 years, and that was on my first term, everybody has talked about why we have the 1 lane, you know, and when are we going to correct it? And we've had lots of people come through and try to do something, and then it stalls for some reason. And it's certainly something that people need to be mindful of. And, you know, is it going to be an inconvenience when we do this? You better believe it. That's why we're looking at trying to figure out ways that we can expedite other routes, so when this does take place, that we can minimize the inconvenience. But I would just tell you that I think the 4 lane is the widening is needed, but not to Acadian. It needs to go all the way to the split. You know, I know there's a lot of opposition to it, and there's some positives to it. But I know everybody has talked about this for some time, and nothing has ever been done. And I think just from a safety aspect, it's worth the improvement when you at Washington, because I promise you, you know, if you look at the reports, that's where most of our congestion and most of our incidents happen, right there when somebody's trying to either cross over or the person coming from out of town and an 18-wheeler doesn't know where he's supposed to be. That's the real world. So.
And there's 2 questions basically saying the same thing about city taking over state roads. How specifically is the city council collaborating with the state on road and bridge projects? Of the 146 backlog in road and bridge projects, how many are in EBR?
Well, I know
$14 billion backlog in road and bridge projects. How many are in EBR?
How many are in East Baton Rouge?
Well, I know we have about 250 bridges that are timber type structures.
In
And those
East Baton
are,
Rouge?
yes, ma'am. And that's probably one of my biggest nightmares. You know, of course, when they built these, that was the thing that's kind of like, that's heyday. That was where you were supposed to build them. Well, now we want to look at more concrete. And even at those, then they're much more expensive. We have 1.4 million we get from under the state for our bridge repairs and replacements. 1.4 million doesn't get me one bridge hardly, because just most of them are around about 1.2 million. In fact, the one on Clay Cut was $1.3 million. So you can almost see your whole bridge funding go right down well in one project. We've been programming bridges. Right now I have probably 6 that are closed. 3 of them we're working through to get. I'm going to answer your question. We're going to get the engineering underway, get that so we can get that the funding. I don't have a mechanism right now, but I am working with the state to try to find funds to be able to do these bridges.
The specific question is, how do we get a list? The state in the advocate today said there's a $14 billion backlog in projects for roads and bridges. My specific question is, how do we get a list of the projects that are in East Baton Rouge that are on this backlog, and are any of these related at all to these new projects that you're attempting to fund through taxes? So where can we get that list?
What you do is you go to Louisiana Department of Transportation. The list is there, and you can go through the list. Now, the advocate keeps saying that there's 13 billion or 14 billion. They talk about roads and bridges. That's not true. There's about $1 billion in there for dredging and other channel work associated with the Mississippi River. Okay, so
But
you
there
have
are
to.
14 billion in roads and bridges that
Can
are
you speak
backlogged.
up? I can't hear
Okay.
us.
We've got a few more questions. I appreciate your patience.
Okay, but you didn't answer one of the previous questions, which was.
But I'm going to leave it up to my monitor right
What is the
now.
average monthly ridership on mass transit in East Baton Rouge?
It changes. I really don't know.
It's-
You don't know?
No, ma'am, I do. I don't know that. I
Okay,
don't.
thank you.
It is about 100,000 average per month. All you need to do is
We
you go
can't
to
hear the
ANTS,
Okay.
storm
and
that's
in ANTS you can go and you have to back out.
You said 100,000 per month.
Sir, if we can just have one conversation, I appreciate it.
I know. That's why I'm not going to.
The next question.
Oh, let me just to emphasize about the bridges. Those are not local bridges that they're making reference to. Those are state-owned facilities.
Okay. Next question. At least one project is in an area that flooded. It is an area that will not grow. Why are we investing money on that road?
Well, I know a lot of roads that probably got water. I
Fred,
assume.
I'll tell you where it is.
I know where it's at.
It's Choctaw. And all that's out there is Capital Steel and a couple of subdivisions. That place flooded in 2016. No one is going to go in there unless they raise the height of the property around there. So,
The Choctaw is a major thoroughfare.
Major, it connects to
not at
Central
that
Thruway.
point. Not at that point. It's not a major thoroughfare.
Well, I will just say this: the cars. There's a lot of cars that use that
Yeah,
section.
yeah.
I will tell you that, and I'm not. And let me tell you, if I had a design, if I have to look at streets that don't flood, then I don't know why we're driving on Government Street, because every time it rains, there are problems with those streets,
And Essen.
but they still need to be improved, and it is an east-west corridor. We get criticized so many times that why are we not extending these streets that tie into a 5-4 lane on Central Thruway, and you have a Choctaw sitting there. If I don't do it, they said, well, why'd you leave it out? And if I had to look at based on flooding, and I understand where you're coming from.
Where are your passenger counts? Where are your vehicle counts?
I have them.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we're almost there. And if we can just sort of hang with the process, I sure would appreciate it. And then if you have specific questions, we'll make sure that the subject matter experts stay to answer your specific questions. Thank you very much. With the high costs for the project, what projects can be cut to reduce the cost of the program?
Well, I guess, and my point is, if I didn't think it was important and it didn't justify the road improvement, I wouldn't have put it on the list for you to consider. And as the mayor has said, and it's on your sheet, preliminary recommendations. And if this group feels like, I want to cut these 6 streets, I want to cut this out, cut that out, we'll get that information, and we will sit as a group to sit down and talk about that, and if they need to be removed, if we got a general consensus, then, it won't be 1 or 2 people, let's face it, because there was a lot of data here to collect it, and it's good data. But still, we want to know, did we miss anything? did we not include something that maybe we should have included? And I think that's the goal and objective here.
Well, I think that was a very comprehensive list of questions from you all.
Ain't no lie about that.
Even though she isn't here?
Well, that question is not specifically to a road project.
Yes, it is. It's specific to this tax. The question to the mayor was specific to this project. Could you read the question?
The question is not to the project, but I'll read the question. The council is to vote on spending $300,000 to hire an efficiency expert. If the vote is yes, will Mayor Broom consider postponing the August 8th vote until the city can successfully eliminate waste and improve efficiency? That's on this?
Yes, that she postponed the vote on putting this on the ballot. If an efficiencies expert is hired, that they let the efficiencies expert do their work and then see if we can come up with any additional monies instead of additional taxes.
I might be able to answer that question of the CAO for the city. The efficiency study really is to look at our general operating budget.
Right.
We have a $900 million overall budget. 320 of that is really just operating money. And we have, I just can't hear me.
what's your name?
Daryl Gissel.
Hey, Darren.
We actually have, as we're looking forward to 2019, we probably have about a $5 million gap that we're trying to close. Just if we don't have anything extra that happens, sales tax revenues are down, et cetera. So the efficiency study really is to try and figure out how to make sure we can balance our operating budget. We're trying to find a way to give police raises, et cetera. So if that money really is needed, it certainly can't fund what this is. We could never get $900 million.
Okay. We have a question here.
If I go and buy a $20,000 car, I'm gonna pay an extra $1,000 sales tax, correct? At half a cent. But somebody from Ascension or Livingston, they're not gonna pay that. But they're gonna drive into East Baton Rouge every day and use our streets. Can we put a toll gate there then? Why do we have to pay for them to come in?
We're driving on their roads.
No, they're not. You pay the sales tax on where you live.
We're driving on their roads.
Well, you make the purchase.
Point of sale.
Point of sale.
Point of sale.
Not for a car.
Okay, let's take two more questions. I have one hand here.
I was gonna ask him, since he's a data collector, if he come up with some data to improve the duration of these projects. Because you go down to the River Road, they've been working on that for, it seemed like, since the Hollywood went in. And that's what gets people so mad when something goes in, it just forever completing it. So I hope he has some data to back up so he can complete something a little quicker.
I'll give you the answer to that one, sir. First off, that's a state highway job that's being done. Secondly, the problem we had there for the delay, most of the delay, is when that river comes up and hits that flood stage, we're not allowed to do any work, not even a shovel. So, and it was like that for almost 5 months. So I just wanted to let you at least know that.
Since you mentioned that, another question I was gonna have you, the project in Currick erecting, since we don't know if it's the highway or somebody else, maybe you ought to have a sign that this is being directed by you, then we wouldn't have to get on you.
All right, so I said we'll take two
I don't
more
have a,
questions.
listen, let me say this. I have no problem with that, folks. I mean, because does somebody, most people don't even know what a state highway is. They just know it's a roadway that I'm driving on. So at that point, it's not that point, but you asked the question, I wanted to tell you why they shut off, because the river had a lot to do with that.
So he got the last two questions. I'd like to let everyone know that there was a sign-in sheet. If you'd like to allow us to keep you posted on the progress of this initiative, please sign in on the sign-in sheet, and we'll make sure that you're put into a database. And thank you very much for your time. If you have any further questions for Mr. Rayford or Mr. Gissel, they'll be here to answer those. Thank you very much.
Good job.